Hello, I'm Anika from Made to Sew. I wanted to talk to you about how I stabilise my necklines and curves in my garments. 90% of the time I use this fusible interfacing, and personally I prefer this to stay stitching, which I have another video on and I'll link to that here. It is important that you stabilise your necklines and curves in your garments because the more you handle your fabric, the more likely that you might stretch them or distort them, and you could end up with a neckline area gaping and not sitting flat against your body. There are a variety of different methods you can use to stabilise necklines and curves in your garments, and fusible interfacing is the method that I use 90% of the time. Other methods include stay stitching, which I have a video you can check out, or more couture methods where you would use a piece of fabric such as silk organza, calico or muslin. The fabric is hand sewn or machine sewn to the curves. Of course, the method that I choose does depend on the fabric that I'm working with, but the majority of the time this interfacing works. There are a variety of different interfacing products that you can purchase to stabilise different areas of your garment. In this tutorial we're going to be talking about the interfacing that you need for curves or necklines. But there are a variety of other products that I use when I need to stabilise other areas, perhaps a zipper that I'm inserting or a pocket placement. The majority of these interfacings are cut on the straight of grain, and I have them in lighter weights and heavier weights, as well as a 2 cm or 3/4 inch size and a 1 cm 3/8 inch size. I also have a similar product in a stretch or jersey form, so that I can use it on stretch or jersey fabrics, or on areas of a garment where I want some give but still stabilisation. Now for these products, you can of course purchase them in strips, but equally you can cut strips from your own interfacing if you have time. The product that I use for necks and curves is slightly different, and I would recommend that you may need to purchase this. This interfacing is a piece that is cut on the bias, so that it can stretch and easily conform around curves. But there is a row of stabilised stitching not quite down the centre to help stabilise it. To position the interfacing onto your fabric, you're going to want to find the sticky side of the interfacing, that is the rough side of the interfacing. And you're going to want to place this onto the wrong side of your fabric. So with the wrong side of your fabric facing up, you're going to want to place the interfacing around the curve. In this case, I'm working on my neckline. You need to make sure that the stitching line on the interfacing is positioned exactly upon the stitching line on your garment. In my case, I have a 1 cm 3/8 seam allowance. So I could measure using my ruler from the edge of my fabric in 1 cm. And you can either use the ruler as a guide when you're doing this, or if you find it easier, you could start by marking on your stitching line onto your fabric. Use a removable pen, like I've got here. The row of stitching is not in the middle of the interfacing. There is a narrower side and a wider side. It is important that you place the wider side of the interfacing into the seam allowance, and the narrower side goes into the garment. You're going to use the iron to work your way around the neckline curve, fusing the interfacing onto the fabric. Because the interfacing is cut on the bias, you should be able to pull the interfacing slightly to get a nice finish. Personally, I don't mark my stitching line. If in doubt, I'll check my measurement when I begin, and then I'll take a look at where the interfacing is finishing in relation to the edge of the fabric, and just make sure I have that same gap of fabric extending past the interfacing all the way around my neck edge. Make sure that the interfacing is well fused before finishing. If your fabric is delicate, I would recommend using a pressing cloth or a protector for the base of your iron. It's always good to test this first. Once you stabilise the neckline and any other curves you need, you can of course continue through your construction. Personally, I would recommend using fusible interfacing like this over stay stitching, because stay stitching only stabilises the area that you've actually stitched. This fusible interfacing stabilises a larger area and I believe gives better results. I'll pop a link to the product I use in the description box below. Thanks for watching and follow for more sewing tips.